Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
But it was a good day, man. Just one of those days where everything just kind of works out. Got a little bit of this done, a little bit of that done. We got some stuff out on the site. We've continued our streak of what, like, I forget how many months it is of just posting something new on the site every day. We've got other things that are kind of unique and fun coming into the site this week. So watch out for that. Actually, by this point, it's probably out. It's probably the recruit rankings by the time. So that's out now. Go check it out. But yeah, man, I hope your Monday was just as productive, even if you were in a training session for
It
your day.
was it was thoroughly productive to the point where I don't know how many brain cells I have left, but I will use the rest of them on this podcast and then be in a coma for the rest of the night.
We don't really operate with a lot of brain cells on this podcast.
It's fair.
A lot of people will be sure to let us know that. So regardless, also the whole reason I guess why we're not getting any reviews is I guess because we have no brain cells. We only have one on Spotify this week, 97, very close to 100. Apple
Indeed.
Podcasts, gotta get those up. It would be really appreciated. No worries if not, but also like yeah, a lot of worry if you can't do that. So yeah, Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're on YouTube now. Go to YouTube. I know I uploaded the video a little bit late last time. You can blame Zencaster for that. That's our fault. But um, that's it. Ben, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. We had, of course, Raleigh relays this past weekend, and we also saw a few performances kind of mixed in as well from other meets, but we're going to focus primarily on Raleigh relays, which have you ever been to Raleigh relays before?
I've not. No.
Oh man, it was always for me and for Belmont like our big like that was like especially since our indoor season usually ended in like late February, early March. Like you just get that first big outdoor race under your belt, get that maybe a regional qualifier, maybe a time that can get you into a faster heat to get that regional qualifier. It was always such a blast to be able to go, and we saw a lot of good performances as we always do this weekend. And let's start at the 800. On the women's side, we saw Dorcas Iwa. I think that's how we'll go with that pronunciation,
Right.
running 204, beating Madison Martinez and Cassidy Johnson, who both ran 205. 205. Iwa, I mean, coming off of just a strong like last year, taking down two strong talents. Martinez, who I think is coming off of a 203 indoor PR. Cassidy Johnson, who we know is very, very talented. So big win this early in the season for Iwa.
Yeah, I mean she's really solid. I don't know if she's an all-American caliber kind of talent, but she qualified for the outdoor national meet last spring. She's got some pretty decent range and versatility to her. Nothing super crazy, but she can be pretty competitive and she's usually at her best in the middle distances, 800, 1500. And I think that's kind of what she's going to do again. She owns a 203 PR. She also ran 415 for 1500 meters that same weekend. So I don't know if we really learned anything about her, but you can see that she's very slowly becoming a little more consistent at this level of competition. She's always been consistent, but to now do what she's been doing consistently at this level is pretty encouraging.
Elsewhere, we saw Yasmin Ostrich and Alyssa Ballandron run 204 as well. I think those were also very solid performances. I think at the 40th Victor Lopez Classic this past weekend, both women, pretty good, pretty well rounded athletes, but dropping down in distance to that 800 and running very strong times this early in the season.
Yeah, I think it was oh gosh, Ballandrin from Rice. She had this 204 effort, I think, from Boston U a couple weeks
Hmm.
back, like last month.
Yep.
So for me, like that's a big performance, right? If you're going to run 204 it on an indoor oval in a completely different circumstance, then go to a completely different area, outdoor track, different field, also run 204 again, that's really encouraging. Now it's the matter of okay, where do you go from here? Like we know you're this competitive. You've proven it now to be legit. How much higher now is your ceiling as the season extends? And then if you're oh my gosh, who else am I? Ostrich.
Hmm.
That was like a 5 second PR for her. in the 800 meters, which is huge. It also makes me wonder, I'm like, how much higher is her ceiling as well? Can she replicate it? These are the kind of performances that you get every spring, and you just have no idea what they really mean.
Well, both of them double back and or maybe ran before, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
and ran PRs in other events. For Ostrich, running 62 seconds at the 400 hurdles, very strong performance there. And then for Belladren, she ran, I think, 4:27 in the 1500, which was a huge PR for her as well. So clearly, fitness is coming together in multiple different areas. I think this is probably where they'll end up landing in this 800, but it's good to see them building that strength to be able to do multiple events and run really well in both of them.
Yeah, all the time. It's always like the Texas schools, the Southern schools, and then California schools, where the spring hits, you're like, where did they come from? So especially because in March, like not everyone's racing, you kind of get to see a little bit
Yeah.
more of these athletes step up and appear out of nowhere. So yeah, it's encouraging. Again, let's see what happens. But this duo kind of reminds me of that Grand Canyon duo
Mm.
from last year. I think it was Hawkinson and gosh, I'm gonna forget the name, but ultimately that's kind of what they remind me of.
Yeah, yeah, and they ended up having, I think, a pretty good season. I think did
Yeah.
one of them qualify for national? End up
I'm
qualifying
actually
for nationals?
looking at that now. Let me quickly glance at that. I believe they did. It was please hold. No, they did not. I forget. It was close though. I remember it being pretty close. So
On the men's side, we saw not at Raleigh, but Cash Powell run an NCAA lead of 147, coming out of nowhere to run 147. Huge, huge performance, and I mean, obviously, we didn't see a lot of the big hitters running this weekend, with it coming so close to NCAA's. But I mean, NCAA one at any point in the season, and 147 is a strong start.
by the way, the Grand Canyon duo was Alexa Hawkinson and Kelly Moudry. Hawkinson was 2 spots out from a national qualifying spot.
Gotcha.
That's what it was. Anyways, Cash Powell 153 last year, runs 151 at altitude unconverted in New Mexico, then goes 149 at the beginning of this outdoor track season, then goes 147. Oh my gosh, like where does this come from? Again, another one of those guys where I even mentioned this in our first thoughts article, where it's like there's always someone. Last year was Sebastian Fernandez
Hmm.
and Lorenz Herman and Tamrat Snyder, and now it's Cash Powell. For me though, like my thing is like he ran that now in what the third week of March, fourth, like 3.5 weeks of March. Like now I'm like, well, if he's running 149 and then 147 in March, like what is he going to do in May? Like that's what really scares me. And he has time to like refine his fitness, to get better, to make some mistakes, to learn from them. That's why I'd be really careful because he also took down his teammate Muhammad,
Hmm.
who has also run 148 before, was a West Regional qualifier. It's not like he just soloed that.
Yeah.
So a really, really nice run for Powell.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, obviously, you wonder how long this improvement trajectory can last. I don't
Right.
think too much longer. But like for him and for all runners who like suddenly accelerate and improve so much that they can get to this national type of level, I think the biggest thing for him is just to get in big races against good competition, learn how to use that fitness in more of a like race setting, and just get yourself ready for regionals and giving yourself a shot at nationals. Clearly, the fitness has come along in leaps and bounds, and now he gets the opportunity to hopefully go up against some of the best in the country to see where he stacks up. So I mean, it's a really exciting trajectory. I hope hopefully he can continue to keep going on it.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to see him at Brian Clay
Yeah,
because Brian Clay would be great validation, kind of like Sebastian Gentile of
I
Iowa
was.
State.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, much like he did last year, ran 146. I think that could be a great opportunity for Powell to kind of be like, hey, I am that dude. And so we'll see what happens. But like, he's got some really good opportunities both there. He can go up to Oregon on the West Coast. Like
Mhm.
between Stanford and Oregon, he has
Some
like no
opportunity.
reason not to run fast. Yeah. So
Absolutely. You mentioning Gentile last spring made me remember there's just this block of time from last year where I just don't remember hardly anything because my son was born and I just
oh, that's
completely
right.
dropped off the radar and like mid-April basically.
Yeah.
And so there's like I was good from the beginning of the season and then was good at NCAA's, but there's like that Brian Clay block of time where I don't have anything that I
That
will be fully locked in this year.
that's right. Yeah. I guess if there's an excuse, like that's a good excuse to have. Um, you got to be married to this game. I'm just gonna say it, but like if you have a kid, I suppose we can give you a pass. Mara was a great substitute last year, so I suppose we'll be okay. Um, yeah. All right. We'll catch up. We'll have to quiz you later this year to see if you're still paying attention. Are there any other 800 performances? Oh yeah, the Raleigh 800s,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Christopher Conrad taking down Reinhard Swainpool at Raleigh Relays, both men running under 148. Good performance from Conrad, picking up the win here in a very solid time. He's someone that's been around for a while. You know that he has the talent. He's run in big races a lot. But good for him to be able to start out his outdoor season like this, and to be able to really, hopefully, he'll go out with a bang in his collegiate career this year, with some really good performances.
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting race. He kind of took control pretty much wire to wire, pretty much. He was really convincing, probably looked the strongest that I've personally ever seen him. He's been a multi time national qualifier. He's run under 148 multiple times, but he's never really been competitive on the national stage. He's never always been like consistent throughout the entirety of a season, or at least not at this high of a level.
Mm.
He's been on the national stage, but has never really broken past 147. So it's a thing where it's like, this is a really encouraging start. The way he ran it was super encouraging. He ran 1500-meter PR, I think, of 346 earlier that weekend, or that week, I should say. So I
Yeah.
like Conrad a lot. For me, though, this is probably one of the best races he's ever had, but now
Hmm.
can you build off of it from here? And I think that's a fair question to ask. And as for Swainpool, this is a big PR. Like, I mean, if he had just timed his move like 5 meters earlier, then his kick at the end, which came out of nowhere, would have probably given him the win. Really impressive kick. But again, much like I mentioned with the women's side, it's how much further can you go from here? That kick was pretty bizarre. So, like, how can you replicate that? But Swainpool's always been pretty good. He's been a 148 guy. He was
Hmm.
talented when he got recruited out of Wake Forest. Like, it's not like this is like, oh my gosh, we can't believe he's talented. Like, we always knew he was talented. But now it's like oh, all right. Well, now you're really getting to that next level. Let's see what you can do from here, kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and running that close to someone like Conrad, and like nearly taking him down with that big kick, I think he has to gain a lot of confidence, knowing that he could go earlier, that he had that much left, and
Yeah.
hopefully that translates to some quicker performances down the line. But yeah, let's wrap it there on the 800. Let's go to the women's 1500, which when I saw these times pop up, I was like, this is one of the best like races of the weekend, out of a lot of good ones. But Margot Appleton running 408 to go sub 410 this early in the season is wild. Riley Penn and Tegan Shine Becker running 410 as well, right behind them, beating Amaris Tanisma, who ran a very respectable 412. This was an incredible race, incredible performances. 408, breaking the meet record, the facility record, like just a tour de force in terms of starting your outdoor season.
A top 20 time all time for 1500 meters. Um, I would be really scared right now if you have to race Margot Appleton.
Gosh.
I wouldn't want to race her. I mean, she's on fire. 9 flat 3K conversion this past winter, 433-mile PR, ran 434 at altitude, meaning that she has something substantially faster underneath her legs, as we saw with the 408 1500 PR, a big time win over some like top tier names, Tanisima included. Esther Seelan had a great race. I mean, this is like now you're getting to a point of like, where's the flaw in her resume? I don't know if there's a flaw in Appleton's resume. You look, she's consistent, nationally competitive, like peaks for the postseason, tactically strong, getting faster, convincingly winning. I just don't know. And this is a Virginia Tech alum saying this. Like, I just don't know where the flaw is on her resume.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the 434 altitude. time. I mean, I think that probably converts to around 4:30, but this 4:08 is like sub 4:30.
And I should clarify. She ran 4:35.83. I said.
Okay.
I meant to say at
Okay,
nationals.
4:30.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, so that this 4:08 is definitely quicker if you convert it to the mile. And I mean, it is so rare that you see um when these national caliber athletes run their first outdoor like 1500-meter, and you're like, oh well, they've run like 4:30 in the mile, or they've run on the men's side like 3:55. You're like, oh well, just expect them to go like 4:10 or sub 3:40, and that just hardly ever happens. Like
Right.
it's always those 1500-meter times outdoors to start are always slower at the top end than you would expect, with like this race being the biggest exception. I have never seen like women just take their indoor fitness and convert it this quickly and this easily into this quick of times this early in the season. And it's quite scary to think about where they could go like in the next month or two.
So for perspective, Caitlin Tui won this race last year in 4:12. That's
And that was a good time.
It was a very good sound. We were like, "Oh, nice run, Caitlin Tui. Yeah, it seems like she got some speed under her. Like she really is at that elite level." And now like Margot Appleton runs 4:08, and we're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like it's Appleton is. It's really hard to like dislike her. She's just doing all the right things. It almost feels like, and listen, I don't know this. I haven't talked to UVA coaches or any UVA athletes, but it almost feels like she's like Mia Barnett left, and she was like, I'm going to take responsibility here. I'm going to step up and I'm going to be
Hmm.
the star. And she's not just matching Barnett, she's clearly better than her right now. And it's wildly impressive. Really impressive.
I mean, Barnett ran this weekend and ran fairly well, running
Yeah.
4:14, but it was a far cry from 4:08, or even former teammate Esther Sealand running 4:12 in a very good performance as well. I mean, the like you said, Virginia in general has just gotten improved so much to the point that the Barnett's absence has hardly been felt, which is something I don't think either of us could have imagined saying a few months ago.
No.
Um, and I mean, just to quick highlight the second and third place finishers, Penn and Shine Becker. I mean, these were really good performances. We've talked a lot about Appleton because I mean, going under 4:10 is so rare this early in the season, but running 4:10 is almost as rare this early in the season. And they're going to be tough outs for anybody racing them for the rest of the season.
I will give Mara so much credit. She's like, Riley Penn, Riley Penn. She's so good. She's like, watch out for her. And honestly, like I don't know how she wasn't one of the most improved names in our this past summer.
Hmm.
She went, Ben, her mile PR prior to this season in 2022, it was it was 5:04 in
Jeez.
2022. She ran 4:34 this past winter at
Hmm.
the Music City Challenge. Her 1500-meter PR was 4:33 last spring. She ran 4:10. She dropped 23 seconds off her 1500-meter PR, and she dropped what, like almost exactly 30 seconds off of her mile PR. That's insane. That's insane. But more importantly, she's validating it. She's running 4:34 and she's running 4:10. And Tegan Scheinbecker, you've got her running 2:02 at IC4As.
Yep.
She would have been on the national stage, but no one knows that because no one follows the IC4A, unfortunately. But she won the IC4A title. Like, it's really impressive. Like, they're validating it. They're showing, like, no, we really are this good. And that makes me wonder, I'm like, what could they do on the national stage? Like, will they get to the national stage? How much faster can they get? Because, like, when you start, like you said with Cash Pal, eventually there's going to be a ceiling
Hmm.
where they don't go any higher. I don't know if we've hit that ceiling with them yet. I don't know what the signal is that they've hit that ceiling. I don't think this is it.
I mean, Shine Becker running 2:02 like 3 weeks ago, and then indoors, and then coming out and running 4:10 in the 15. You could make an argument that she can run either of those events and
Yep.
be a national contender. Like, those are two incredible performances, and I'll be fascinated to see what she ends up landing on, because I mean, both of those marks are exceptional. I can't wait to see her run an outdoor 800, see if she can go under 2:02. I mean, it is scary what like the heater that she's on right now. And she ran for what was it 434 at BU early in February. I mean,
Mhm.
very close to making NCAA's. Like her and Penn were right on the edge, and you have to feel like if they had been able to get in, that we probably would have been talking a little bit about them at NCAA's.
Yeah, yeah, and they're so talented, and I just don't know what their ceiling is, and that makes them all 3 of those women, the Appleton, Penn, and Scheinbecker kinda trio, like, that's a scary group because, like, there is a potentially no limit, and there's no ceiling, and I would be very scared to face them right now. And what's wild is we're not talking about Tanisma, 412, we're not talking about Sealand, 412, like, these are really good times. Like, I think we if you had come into this, you'd be like, "Oh,
Hmm.
well, they ran 412." You'd be like, "Oh, so they were contending for the win." It's like, "Well, no,
Not
not
even
really,
close.
not even really, actually." But who I real quick before we move on, Kimberly May, Providence, 413 for I believe sixth place. Yeah, sixth
Hmm.
place. She ran 437 in the mile at the Big East Championships. She ran 242 for 1,000 meters to win the IC4A title, and now she ran 413. Another one who's on a hot streak.
Yeah.
Like, she's really dangerous. Providence has a history of some nationally competitive names, especially in the 1,500 meters. Had it with Shannon Flockhart last
Yep.
year. I would I would monitor Kimberly May. She looks really solid right now.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the men's side. We saw Connor Murphy take home the win in 339. Teammate Gary Martin 340. Baldwin Magnuson running 340 as well. And then we saw Yassine Sato and Ronan McMahon Staggs running three, or no, sorry, McMahon Staggs was somewhere else, but he also ran 341. Good for result for him. Teammates Sato and Porter were fourth and fifth at Raleigh in 340 and 341. I mean, exceptional performance for the Virginia men. I mean, four in the top five running 341 or faster. It reminds me of a few years ago when I was at Raleigh watching the Villanova guys
Mm.
just tear it up in a similar fashion with Dolan, O'Donovan, and there's another name. Oh, Comer,
Oh,
Casey
yeah,
Comer.
Comer. Mhm.
So I mean, very good performance. 339, very very good time. Not, I don't think it's necessarily as good as Appleton's 408, but a very good performance still.
Kind of predictable, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I think I had 3 guys in the top 5. They had 4. The only reason why I had 4 in there is because I had Viven Hines winning it all in 338. He did. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. See, I'm just allergic to fast times. I'm the worst. Anyways, I had Viven Hines winning this in 338. He was the only guy in my predictions who just had a bad day. So it was. Other than that, though, I thought it was pretty straightforward. Like, I said Murphy was the safest guy to like win this race, and I said
Yeah.
he would have run 339. He kind of did that. I will say this kind of reminded me a little bit of like the when the Georgetown guys all went sub 4 of that indoor meet like a few
Hmm.
years back at Boston U. That was a couple years back actually. But yeah, I don't know if I'm too surprised by this. This is about right.
No, I mean, this is fairly similar to what they did indoors. I mean, fairly comparable in terms of times, maybe a little bit slower than what they were running at their best in the mile. Um, but yeah, this is fairly predictable. I think good result for Magnuson, who
Hmm.
running kind of in a lower distance for him sets him up hopefully well for 5K later on in the season, as maybe is the case for some of these other guys. But yeah, I mean, good start for all of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. So but that's all I got.
All right, let's transition then to the women's steeplechase, where at Raleigh we saw Angelina Ellis run 9:53 to just beat Emily Cole's 9:53. Good result for both these women running this far under 10 this early in the season. Very, very good sign. For Cole, this is very comparable to what she's done before in the steeplechase. And Ellis, a very good mark to start the season.
Yeah, I mean Cole was the favorite, but she wasn't unbeatable. Granted, she ran like what 30 seconds faster than her season debut in this event from last year. She went on to run. I know she went on to run like 9:48. Went to nationals. She had a great indoor season, so like clearly that's translating to the
Hmm.
track now. She hasn't raced a steeplechase since last spring. So, like, this is a great result. But Angelina Ellis is someone who I was like, okay, she's going to run under 10. I had her running 9:58, placing third. Um, but you kind of like look at her resume, and there were things to suggest that like she was picking up steam.
Yep.
437 mile at Mayo, then 904 3K at Boston University, then a pair of gold medals in the 3K and DMR at the Big East Championships. There was like a lot of momentum in her favor, and now she takes home a nice steeple PR in 9:53. She's kind of a little bit like Kimberly May. Like, she's not the person who's the most on fire, but she has a really steady resume that's really benefiting her. And now taking down Emily Cole that quick of a time at this kind of meet with that big of a PR, a lot is going in her favor right now.
Yeah, a meet record for her as well. So it gives you a good indication of how much faster this race was than normal at this time of the year. Because usually, and I think you maybe mentioned this your reaction, like you look at the steeplechase and it's like a very slow burn throughout the beginning of the season.
Hmm.
Then all of a sudden at conference championships or like a few weeks before, everybody's suddenly running like these insanely quick times, and we get all excited at going into NCAA's, but we don't normally have much to get that pumped up about in the steeplechase, especially this early in the season. And they certainly provided that. I think for Cole, like you said, running that much quicker than she did at the beginning of last year, you can only imagine where she's going to end up at the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great result for her. I think now it's the question of how much like faster do these women get? Basically, like as we saw last year, like you need to be under 940 to be in the All American conversation nowadays,
Yep.
which is an insane thing to say. But it's not like I think they can both eventually get under 940. Can they get under 940 far enough to be in that conversation? And I guess we'll see.
Absolutely. One other woman running sub 10, we should mention Aziza Chigatoyeva. We're gonna go with
Very
that.
close. Nice.
9:58, running a PR. Very good performance from her as well. The Binghamton senior, good performance. Anything else before we go to the men?
That's all I got.
All right, on the men's side, very similar to the women's, some extremely quick times. This was another one like the women's 1500 where my eyes kind of popped out a little bit looking at the results. Matthew Wilkinson, top collegiate, 8:29. Patrick Thigeson, running 8:33, and Kevin Robertson 8:37. You can say all the things I said about the women's steeple, I would apply to the men. We do not see these quick of times this early in the season. It is going, I mean, we already were in for a loaded and a very quick steeplechase field on the men's side again this year after how good it was last year. And Wilkinson's just taking it up a notch to go sub 830 this early in the season. I mean, he's going to be looking at 18, 818, like 818, 819 probably by the end of the year, which is a wild thing to be able to already project.
And I like him a lot. Like I think you and I are both very high on him.
Yes.
We think very highly of him. And this idea that like, hey, like the 820 barrier is not out of reach if you're going to run 829 now. Granted, I think Isaac Updike of Empire Elite, he was the guy who kind of made this race fast. Ran 825, took home the overall win. So like naturally, this is going to be a bit of a faster race for someone of Wilkinson's caliber. Um, but like, there's a part of me that's like, is he in that Hamilton tier? Is he in that Stokes tier? And he might be.
I think so. I think this puts him firmly in that discussion, and I think we would be talking a little bit more about him if he had, if he was able to run indoors. Like I just,
Yeah.
I think that him kind of being away for a little while, out of sight, out of mind, a little bit. Like 829, I think puts you firmly in that category. And I think we both thought very highly of him going into last outdoor season, at last NCAA championships, and thought he could be a true contender there. He wasn't quite in that top like three, but I mean he wasn't that far off.
No, no. I mean, he was an All American. He was eighth though, right? Last
Yeah,
spring.
I
Yeah. I mean,
that sounds
so
right.
825 PR, like he's certainly closing in on that already in the month of March. I don't know if I'm ready to say he's a title contender yet. I like him a lot. Like, this is definitely a result that I'd overreact to in March and be like, title contender. Like, usually in most years, you could get away with that with an 829 mark based on what we saw last year. That's probably not the case. But I mean, like the rest of this field, like Patrick Teagueson, 833, Kevin Robertson, 837, a total of 10 collegiates ran under 850. That's really impressive. Like Teagueson had been running really, really well. I didn't think he was going to run 833. You could have said, like, okay, if he runs 838, 839, it's one thing. Like, sure. But 837 with Syracuse, that's, with Kevin Robertson, it's just fast. It's just really, really fast, and it's just not what you usually see.
And I also really like Wilkinson closing the way he did in 64 seconds. I mean,
Yeah.
he's always had a good finishing kick in the steeplechase, but I really like to see that already this early in the season. I mean, Updike kind of gapped him going into the penultimate lap, but for Wilkinson to close as well as he did, is very good sign. And yeah, these other guys, really good performances. I mean, running under 840, running under 850 this early in the season. I mean, I remember years where if you ran 850, you would win at Raleigh. Like it's just
Yeah.
a very different world that we're living in right now.
It's wild. Now you're like 829 and you don't even take home the overall win. Like that's what's wild. Um, so yeah, I mean it's a great result for a handful of people. Caleb Futter, 842 Grand Valley State D2 guy. Really big result for him, especially because the D2 steeplechase is pretty competitive. So great run for him. And a lot of these guys will be faster in the future. Like I imagine a
Oh,
lot of these guys
100%.
are going to be scaring the 850 barrier. You just kind of look at them and you're like, yeah, they're going to go faster, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the scary thing about these performances is everybody's going to run 10 seconds faster probably by the end of the season,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is really scary. All right, let's go to the women's 5K. We saw Olivia Markovic take home the win dominantly in 15:33, being Samantha Bush, who ran 15:39. Addie Engel and Katie Thronson finishing third and fourth in 15:44. Just really good performances. Nothing that was very surprising. You look at the top four, and you're like, yeah, could have predicted that these would be our top four finishers, and that they would all run fairly quick times. Not a whole lot for me to say, quite honestly.
No, I mean I had Thronson, and I would have thrown her in the top five, and I did. I didn't have Angle in the top five just because of her times, her quieter indoor track season.
Mhm.
For her to run 15:44, I think is solid. But Thronson, I was pretty spot on about. Thought a few other women would run a little bit faster, but like generally speaking, there had been like Anderson and DeMars and Buckley, like a lot of these women, like Churchill as well, had all kind of shown these very subtle signs of like I'm going to be better. Like there's things that they were about to have a breakout race. Yeah, it's kind of like that's just kind of is what it is. Like this is just kind of the race. Like I don't really know. There's a whole lot we're looking at here that goes, whoa, like that really shocked us. The only thing that surprised me is that like Markovic had never run a 5K before, which is it.
Wow. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is.
so it's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, you just see Notre Dame had really good depth as well. Markovic, Thronson, then you had Siona Chisholm run fairly well, running 15:53. I mean, it was just a good team battle, honestly, between NC State, Notre Dame, and Georgetown, all running fairly well. Kind of good to see that cross country rivalry come alive on the track this early in the season.
Yeah, Marley Stolliper back under 16 minutes, 15:56.
Hmm.
Knowing how if she can get healthy again, like she'll probably scare the 15:40 barrier come May. We'll see if that happens, but yeah, I mean, like it's great stuff. Grace Hartman of NC State is a freshman showing promise. Like, there's a lot of really subtle
Yeah.
signs that I liked from pretty much everyone in that top 15. So everyone who went under 16. So yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the men's 5K where we saw a surprise winner, Toby Gillen of St. Louis running 13:35, Jake Gebhardt coming in second, and Dave Malarkey both running 13:37. And then we also saw DJ Principe finish fourth in 13:38. I think good results for all these guys. But for Gillen, I mean, he's run quick before, but this was still a big PR. And most importantly, in my mind, took down a lot of good names won fairly convincingly, beating Gebhardt by almost 2.5 seconds. Really, really good performance. And he's like, we've talked about this for a lot of people this weekend. Good time. You get the win. Now it's time to, like, if he tries to get into another quick 5K, how does he compete against better competition now that he's clearly gone up a level? So, really excited to see what he can do for the next year. We could see a budding star on our hand.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's the thing: like, you look at his resume. Here's all of his times from like 2022 and on. It's 1436, 1422, and then into the spring of last year, 1407, 1411, 1426. This past winter, 1341, 1413, and then most recently, 1335. Like, he really had no background or no history to suggest that he was going to run 1341 in the winter and then run 1335, win convincingly over a really solid field. It's maybe
Mhm.
not the best field he's ever going to be in, but a really solid field. Like, those guys were no joke. Three others under the 1340 barrier, or well, yeah, four others under the 1440 barrier, including Ryan Kutch of Tracksmith. That's really solid. Like, he just looks solid. He looks so comfortable. He was able to pull away at the end fairly easily. Like, I want to root for a guy because, like, a mid-major guy, you don't really talk about St. Louis that much, and it was just impressive. And, like, just because of how he ran it, who he took down, it's a validation of his 1341. Just a very good feel good story.
Yeah, St. Louis has a good history of making some very solid talents, but it's been a long time, if ever, that we've seen someone jump to this level nationally. And you look at some of the guys he beat who maybe didn't have their best day, but still ran solid times, like Acer Iverson, Simon Bedard, Luke T-Walt. I mean, these guys are very, very good athletes who ran in the 1340s, and he took them down. And I mean, obviously, the top two or three guys that he also beat also ran very well. I think Gebhardt, this was kind of expected, but still a very good performance. And for Principe, I thought this was one of the better performances we've seen from him on the track,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good
Yep.
to see him kind of. I wouldn't say finally, like, fulfilling that potential that we had seen in high school and at Stanford, but he's really kind of coming into his own on the track for Providence.
I'll say it. I think it's finally. Like, I think it is. Like, 754 3K PR. Solid. Finally gets under 4 minutes in the mile this past winter, runs 358. And then runs 1338. Like, these are no joke times.
Mhm.
Like, he starts putting this together. Like, you can start making an argument of, like, there's always like one or two guys who kind of sneak in unexpectedly in the West region and they surprise a few people. And he's got a good combination of PRs right now. He's on fire. He's running well. You got to be happy for Principe. I think this is a really nice result for him. But yeah, Gillen's the main star of the show. Gebhardt, I thought, was really impressive. And Malarkey, I think we're still learning more about him.
Yeah.
But, like, he had another performance where we're like, maybe the kid is the real deal.
And goodness, does Florida State need someone to be the real deal? Like,
Yes, yes, they do.
this is huge for them. We've talked about kind of Arkansas in this way of being like they can restock on the fly, but Florida State's very much the same way. But you still need one or two guys kind of in the cupboard already before you restock, and he looks like he could be that one or two guys for them.
I also want a quick note. Benjamin Godish, is it, ran
Mhm.
1341. He was the first guy who didn't run under 1340 to finish this race. Northeastern men are they're okay. They've got some guys. And now that I'm taking a look at this, they do lose Korzanowski and Schaefer. Okay, so they actually lose a lot of guys from last year. I was wondering if a lot of those guys would return. A lot of those guys do not return, but they've always got a couple guys like here and
Yeah.
there that are pretty sneaky good. Godish might be one of those guys if he can get enough momentum.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every year, every other year, there's a Northeastern guy who kind of shoots up the national leaderboard, and he looks like the next guy. Um, I think that's all I got on the men's 5K, though.
Are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How surprised were you that Acer Iverson and/or Simon Beddard weren't in the top three?
Surprised. I would say like a 7 or 8, but I'm
Yeah.
not concerned about it. Like they
Sure.
still ran good enough times for this early in the season. I think those should qualify them regionally. I think they'll be good. Like this isn't you're not winning championships in
No,
March, so
no,
except
no.
unless you're running in the indoor oval. But
True.
yeah, I think that's a perfectly acceptable result for them.
All right. That's all I got.
All right, let us transition to our last events. And first up, the women's 10K. Allie Hayes, take a bow.
Yeah.
32-21 for a huge victory. Just an incredible performance. Eleanor Mancini was second collegiate, 32-43. Kelsey Camille, 32-55. Kelsey Camille running a very good race of 32-55. Maybe you would expect a little faster, but she got waxed by her
Yeah.
teammate. And Mancini, who for LaSalle is a very, very good talent, but did not expect her to be taking down the runner-up from this year's NCAA cross country championships.
Um, you mean third place
Or
finisher?
third place. Yes, you're right. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Excuse me, Parker Valby. So
Margot
sorry.
Valby. Yes. I don't even know what to say here. Like, I was so convinced it was going to be Camille. I was like, well, she's got it. It's fast.
Obviously. Yeah.
Of course she has. She's the best runner in this field. She's the most refined. She's been on fire this year. But like, here's the thing: like Hayes ran that fast. Like she ran faster than what I think anyone ran last year at this distance, which is insane. And also, by the way, like we knew Hayes was good, right? Like she's been an All American at this distance before. Like she's run fast times before. Like that's not new.
Mm-hmm.
What is new though is that she gapped from almost 2 miles out her own teammate, who's an aerobic centric beast, like in
Yeah.
Kelsey Camille. Like just Hayes was just better. She was just so much better. And it was amazing just to see her pull away. Mancini had a heck of a race, just kind of carried with the momentum of Hayes. I kind of wonder, I'm like, where does this put Hayes in the conversation? Where does this put her? Because the problem is that we haven't seen her since last year. So I don't think we really know, except for the one race we have on her. But
Mm-hmm.
like, this was a wildly convincing race.
This feels like when obviously she doesn't have near the pedigree as Lauren Gregory, but when Lauren
Yeah.
Gregory ran that 10K, we are like, oh my goodness, she's gonna win the national title. Like, and I feel like it'd be easy to have that same exuberance around Hayes because the 10K, especially on the women's side, with Caitlin Tui taking up so much oxygen everywhere else, you kind of look at the 10K as like that's a winnable event. Like
Yep.
there isn't any dominant force there. And so when you see someone run 32-21 and beat probably one of maybe prospective like biggest challengers in Camille, kind of look at her a little differently and be like, what could we have a true title contender on our hands, which is an aggressive thing to say, but this time is quite impressive.
It's really impressive. And it's so funny you said the Lauren Gregory thing, because that's exactly the comparison I have in my head. I'm thinking, I was like, it's the same thing. She runs super fast, very convincing. The 10K is wide open because
Mhm.
just simply because Tui's not there for now. Um, and it's a kind of a wide open event. Does Cholangot deserve that respect? Yes. Actually, is she returning? Is Cholangot returning? She is returning this spring. That's right. Which is scary to think about. But like
Yeah.
I can't help but think I'm like, I mean, Hayes has to be in the conference. I don't know if I'd call her a title favorite. I think I would say that she's a title contender though.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like us. Just I've had it such a hard time pegging her all year because she's been good and consistent, but it just doesn't seem like she's at her title winning best abilities. And I don't know if I see her winning a national championship. Maybe that'll prove to be wrong, but especially in a 10K that could be very wide open. I think she's probably one of the biggest locks to finish like top three, especially in an event that can be sometimes as unpredictable as the 10K. But I think it really is wide open, and Hayes certainly adds another name to it.
I think she's my clear go-to favorite. Like I just don't know who else I
Yeah.
would choose.
Well, I think that's where I'm at, where I just don't have anybody to choose.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, did she deserve the national title last year? Yes.
Yes.
Was the 10K the most wide open event last year? Also, yes. Like it was the event that she should have won. I feel like it's kind of the same thing again this year, despite how fast Allie Hayes ran. But
Mhm.
unless Parker Volby's healthy and moves up to the 10K, unless Caitlin Tui moves up to the 10K, unless Hilda Alamamwe decides to be, above her years in age and moves up to the 10K, I don't see why Chelangat isn't the favorite. And I love Lauren Gregory, but she she has to win a title first. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I would feel a little bit better about Gregory if she moved up to the 10K, I feel like.
but
Like,
she
she
did
just
last year.
yeah, no, I'm saying, like, like, this year, if she does it again and tries to run the 10K. Like, I mean, coming off of the indoor season that she had, I mean, it was just so much better than Chelangat's. Like, I would put her ahead of Chelangat in the pecking order.
Okay, we'll have to reevaluate what some of the names are because, obviously there's news, and we'll maybe even post this on the site this week about Grace Forbes
Yeah.
likely not going to be competing this spring. It's a little blurry, but likely not competing. Natalie Cook's out of the picture, so she's
Yeah.
not going to go up to 10K. Covert's coming back from some injury stuff. Magnus is gone. Like Hayes is really the only one there. I
I
don't know
wanna
what's going to
see
happen with
Taylor
Gregory.
Rowe move up. Move up to the 10K, Taylor Rowe. I don't think she's going
No,
to,
she's
but
not
I would
going
like her
to.
to.
She's not going to. I don't know that for a fact, but
I
um,
would be shocked if she did, but I would love to see it.
honestly, I think it could be Hilda Olamwamwe. I think that's the really only clear choice of like who could move up,
Well, because
or Venters too.
yeah, Venture's a good call, but I completely agree with Olamame. Like, if she just sticks to the script of hang around Chilangat for most of the race and then accelerate, I think she'll do quite well in the 10K.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, we kind of spent a lot of time just talking from that from a national perspective. Anything else in this race though?
No, I mean there was a lot of women who ran really, really well, but nothing that like completely, blows my mind. You really kind of look at a lot of the main women in this field. It was pretty straightforward-ish.
Yeah, I mean, Mancini beating Camille, I think, was
Right.
probably the other big upset. Really good performance from her.
Real quick before we move on, Mancini. If I said that she was going to be an All American, you would put money on that, yes or no?
Yeah, I'll put money on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, it's wide open. She's run a fast time. This isn't like completely out of left field. I could see it happening.
Yeah, I could see it happening too. I'm not sure if I put money on it yet, but I could see it happening. Yeah.
On the men's side in the 10K, we saw Jeremy Diego take home the win in 28:22, beating Graham Blanks, who ran 28:24. The third and fourth collegiates were Nicholas Scudder, 28:28, and Half Two Strinsos, 28:36. And then you also saw Villanova flex some depth, running 28:41. With Jack Jennings and Josh Phillips, Kevin Barry sandwiched between the two of them. Um, Again, really good performances by all. I think Diego, we had seen this kind of potential coming the way he closed last fall. So not shocking to see him run this fast. It is a little bit of a surprise to see him take down someone as good as Graham Blanks,
Mm-hmm.
um, and Scudder and Strinsos as well. But a really good performance from, I think everybody kind of will leave this race in the top 10 pretty happy.
I don't really have anything to say. Like, I think you just kind of took it. Like, did I expect Graham Blanks to win? Yes. Did I expect him to run a little faster? Also, yes. But Diego's a true long distance guy. The 10K is the perfect distance for him. Like, it just is.
Mhm.
He's like kind of like I don't want to say necessarily a time trial kind of guy, but he's a time trial kind of guy. He runs well in fast settings. But to take down Blanks is huge. He's better over the longer distances.
Mhm.
It's not a shock. It's not like he destroyed Blanks, but 28-22 was within his wheelhouse. Um, that's it. Like that's just kind of like I don't really have anything to say about this race. It was kind of predictable. I don't think it changes anything about the NCAA landscape in any dramatic way. I don't know if I'd say that Diego's an All-American favorite yet. I'd say he could, but I just think
Yeah.
there's a couple guys who are just more established. But could he absolutely move on from here and improve? Yes, definitely. But that's all I really
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what he does the rest of the season
Yeah.
as he drops down to like the 5K. What can he do in the 5K? What can he do going up against even more loaded field? Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun to watch him. I think the Villanova guys had a great
Hmm.
night. Notre Dame had a few guys, which was good to see. Sub 29. But yeah, I mean, nothing like these are the guys that you would expect to be running about as fast as they did. And they all probably leave very happy.
The Villanova guys make me really interested because of, and I can't help it because the weather gets nice. I start seeing some 10K distances, and I'm like, what does this mean for cross country? Like,
Oh yeah,
like
no,
I
that was my
can't,
first thought.
I can't help it. Like, I was like, oh, I can't wait to debate for 3 months about something that we won't know about for another five. Like, you know, but I couldn't help but think, I'm like, what does this mean for Villanova? Because they lose these guys. But I'm like, all right, it's March. Calm down. Like, well, let's get to June 1st. So,
Just put a bookmark that for like mid July when we're having
yeah.
these discussions.
Yeah. I can't help it. I just love cross country. I can't help it. So,
All right, I think that's it for the recap of this weekend. Anything else you wanted to hit on?
no, I think that was kind of it. I think we got it all.
Sweet. All right. Well, like Garrett said, we got plenty of stuff coming up on the site in the next few weeks. Reminder to leave us a Apple rating and review, Spotify rating. Leave us a YouTube comment on this week's YouTube video if you want that to be read on next week's episode. We'll read the best review that we see. But other than that, anything else before we leave?
That's all I got, man.
All right. Well, until next week, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.